Ladies and gentlemen, your Sacramento Kings are third in the Western Conference after going down to LA and beating the Los Angeles Lakers for the third time this season, this time without Domantas Sabonis. It's my favorite win of the season so far. I am fired up, and you are listening to Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all regular season long. Today presented by BetOnline. BetOnline as you cover this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports reporter and producer for ABC 10. I'm standing up in my office this time because I couldn't sit down after this game. And I'm also going to be on the air for ABC 10 in like 45 minutes, so I got to speed through this podcast tonight. But I had to get it in right away because this is my favorite win of the season by far. That includes blowing out the Brooklyn Nets on national television. That includes like a massive Kevin Huerter game-winning three over the Utah Jazz for their 1-point lead at home following their 1-point lead over the Denver Nuggets just a couple of nights before that. This win speaks volumes for the Sacramento Kings. It's not just the fact that they came into this win shorthanded with Domantas Sabonis and Matthew Dellavedova out with non-COVID related illnesses. It's the fact that they were down significant early, had just a terrible first quarter, and rallied as a team behind their star in De'Aaron Fox to command this game for basically the final three quarters and leave Los Angeles with the victory and ultimately taking the season series with the Lakers 3-1, not having to worry about a tiebreaker if it comes down to that in the standings later on. That's a big plus as well. But the Kings don't have to worry about the Lakers in the standings at this point. Why? Because while the Lakers are down in play-in territory, the Sacramento Kings are top 3 in the Western Conference. And I don't care if people don't expect that to stick. I don't care if the Sacramento Kings fall out of that spot tomorrow because it took the Miami Heat absolutely beating down the New Orleans Pelicans tonight for that to happen. I don't care. The Kings are there. It's January. The Sacramento Kings are 7 games above 500. They're on a 5-game winning streak, and they are sitting in third place in the Western Conference. I don't care how pessimistic you are, and believe me, you know I've been pessimistic at times, not just last season, but even at times this season with the Sacramento Kings, especially with some of their struggles at home before they rattled off this 5-game win streak. And let me tell you, even the most pessimistic person on the planet cannot ignore or not enjoy what the Sacramento Kings are doing right now. I am so fired up by how the Sacramento Kings won this game. I honestly, even if the Sacramento Kings lost, I wouldn't have been happy, and I know we're not talking about moral victories here for the Kings, but how they responded to that first quarter, the second quarter they put together, the effort that De'Aaron Fox put out there, the game that Richaun Holmes had starting for the first time this season in the place of Domantas Sabonis, who was out. I can go down the list. There's so many things about this game that just make me proud as a Sacramento Kings fan, and I'll honestly tell you, I'm starting with this. Nothing makes me more proud than the game that Richaun Holmes put together. And look, I was trying to manifest it when we found out that Richaun Holmes was not going to be playing. I was trying to manifest that Richaun would have a positive night because I believe in Richaun Holmes. And I've said that many times here on the podcast. I think Richaun is a very solid player in the NBA. I know his contract gives him quote-unquote negative value in the market, but I do believe a team would be smart to try and acquire Richaun, or the Kings would be smart just to hold on to him, even if they have to pay a little more than what he's worth as a center who isn't really part of the Kings rotation right now. Regardless, like I've said so many times with many different members of this Kings roster, I got to give the same love and praise to Richaun, who has stayed ready. He steps up on the road in Los Angeles, a game where the Kings went from slight underdogs to pretty significant underdogs as soon as Richaun Holmes, or rather Domantas Sabonis, went down. Richaun steps into that starting spot, replacing the most important player on this Sacramento Kings team. And no, the Kings didn't play the exact same, but Richaun did his job. He came into this game, scored, he scored 16 points on a perfect 7 of 7 from the field and grabbed 11 rebounds in 31 minutes. More important, he looked like he belonged on both ends of the floor. I'm not going to pretend that he was perfect on the defensive end. I just shared with you he was perfect shooting percentage-wise. He did not necessarily know how to run the offense as effectively as Domantas Sabonis does. In fact, early on, I caught De'Aaron Fox and Kevin Huerter both directing Rashawn, telling him where he needed to go, making sure he knew this is where they wanted the ball and dribble handoffs. Rashawn had maybe the most difficult job out of the entire Sacramento Kings team tonight. Rashawn stepping into the starting lineup, replacing Domantas Sabonis, and he held his own and absolutely was a significant factor in the Kings winning this game. I am so proud of Rashawn Holmes. And you know what? Maybe this game will open a team or two's eyes to Rashawn still has a lot to give. Maybe it's just not working here in Sacramento because of the way the Kings are playing, and Rashawn doesn't necessarily fit the way that Mike Brown and the Sacramento Kings are playing right now, and he's not the only player on this roster to have those struggles. But Rashawn is absolutely an NBA player. He's absolutely a player that occasionally can step into that starting spot, or maybe for some team can be that starter to just hold down that spot on a nightly basis. He can give you big numbers. He is a bucket getter on the inside when he gets to his spots. Rashawn deserves all the praise and all the credit in the world, and that is why I'm starting with him on this podcast. Even though, man, I got a laundry list of things to credit the Sacramento Kings for. Of course, I got to talk about De'Aaron Fox, right? For the Kings to fall behind by 14 points, they're getting abused on the inside. And when we saw Domantas Sabonis was out, what did all of us say and what did all of us think? De'Aaron Fox is going to need to step up in a major way for the Kings to have a chance to win this game. No Domantas Sabonis. De'Aaron, you are the star. All eyes on you. Time to put up or shut up. And the best thing is, De'Aaron didn't have to wait until the fourth quarter to do that. He gave the Sacramento Kings 20 points in the first half. 20 of his 31 points came in the first half. And what's significant about that to me is when Domantas Sabonis is playing for basically the first three quarters, or pretty much every night the first three quarters, the ball runs through Domantas. And even times in the fourth quarter, of course, the ball runs through Domantas. That's just how skilled he is. He is the foundation of the Kings offense. But when the Kings get away from that, it's when De'Aaron Fox is getting going in the fourth quarter, where he does a little more, he works with different players on getting to his spots, sometimes pick and rolls with Sabonis, sometimes just running off of other players, getting to that elbow jumper, that free throw line jumper that he likes, attacking the basket, hitting threes. When De'Aaron is doing that, the Kings aren't as reliant on Sabonis as they are for the remainder of the game. Now, as we saw in the past, the Kings can't rely on that for 35 to 40 minutes a night from De'Aaron Fox 82 games a year. It's not sustainable. Fox can't keep that up. But on occasional nights like tonight, when you need that from De'Aaron because either maybe Sabonis is in foul trouble or he's out because of injury, De'Aaron is capable of stepping up, and it is on him to step up. There are no excuses for De'Aaron in this game. He comes in and has to deliver a big performance, and when the Kings needed him to pull them out of their struggles in that first half, he delivered in a major way. I don't care that he only scored 11 points in the second half. In fact, I give him and I give the Sacramento Kings team as a whole a ton of credit. That third quarter, to me, spoke volumes. And I'm going to go back to the second quarter. I'm all over the place. There's no chronological order to this podcast today. I'm jumping all over the place to talk about all the things and give all the love to the things that I need to give love to. But that third quarter for the Sacramento Kings spoke volumes to me. De'Aaron's coming off of a 20-point first half. He's dominating. He missed like 2 or 3 shots. Actually, I think he missed 4 shots. He was 8 of 12 at halftime. Like, De'Aaron was the guy for the Sacramento Kings who helped turn that 14-point deficit in the first quarter into a, I think, 1-point lead at halftime. Like, De'Aaron was massive in that second quarter, of course. But in the third quarter, you're thinking, okay, De'Aaron needs to do more of that. De'Aaron might have to play basically the remainder of this game for the Kings to be able to hold on and win this game. No, the Kings scored 29 points in the third quarter. De'Aaron scored 2 of them. 29 points. 27 of those points coming from other members of the Sacramento Kings. That's huge. And the fact that De'Aaron rested the final 4 minutes and 37 seconds of the third quarter, even rested the first 30, 45 seconds of the fourth quarter as well. That allowed the Kings to set up fourth quarter De'Aaron Fox, which they didn't end up needing as significantly as they've needed in the past. They didn't need De'Aaron to drop 11, 12, 13, 15, 20 plus points in the fourth quarter like he's done in Kings wins in the past. They didn't need that tonight. A lot of it had to do with the fact that the Kings as a team put together a really solid second half. And that's what I love to see. Of course, we know De'Aaron's capable of it. And De'Aaron still led the team with 31 points tonight. Of course, he is still the star and the focal point. But I think De'Aaron would turn the attention on his teammates just as much as I'm turning the attention on his teammates, because they deserve all the praise and all the credit in the world. And again, I'm going to go through so many of them and how so many different guys combined to make up for that Domantas Sabonis absence. I'm going to get to that later on in this podcast. But for the Kings in the third quarter, to offensively have the quarter that they were able to have and to do so without putting it all on De'Aaron's back to set him up so he had enough in the tank to help the Kings in a close game, which of course he did. You knew this game was going to be close going down to the wire, even if the Sacramento Kings were able to build a 14-point lead of their own in the third quarter. You knew this game was going to be close. De'Aaron needed to be fresh, needed to be ready. He was not burnt out because of the effort of his teammates and what they were able to do offensively, taking some of the load off of his shoulders in the third quarter. That is phenomenal to me. Now let me talk about the second quarter, because this second quarter, like, even if the Kings lost this game, I was going to talk about the second quarter. This second quarter gave me so much pride as a Sacramento Kings fan and Kings media member, and I think it should for you too. For the Kings to be down by 14 points, for the Kings to give up 24 points in the paint alone in the first quarter. Like, Lakers were getting everything they wanted. The Kings' offense was struggling because they were adapting to not having Domantas Sabonis out there. De'Aaron Fox had a good first quarter. That was about it. Threes were not falling for the Kings, even though they were good looks. Like, the Kings looked like they were in trouble, and it was going to be a long night by the end of that first quarter. And how do they respond? Not only offensively do they get going a little bit more, does De'Aaron Fox continue with his hot shooting, but defensively, they hold the Lakers to just 21 points in the second quarter. They did it defensively. And then offensively, they started to build and get comfortable playing without Domantas. They started to really settle in. But the fact that the Kings gave up 24 points in the paint in the first quarter looked like, man, Lakers are going to go for 70 plus, which I think is what they did when they defeated the Kings 136-134 last time these two teams met, which was in Sacramento. That was the last time the Sacramento Kings lost. Points in the paint have been a big issue for the Kings this season, with or without Domantas Sabonis. And it looked like we were on our way to that. So you give up 24 points in just the first quarter in the paint. You know the Lakers are going to continue to try and attack the basket. Sacramento does a better job securing the paint, forcing the Lakers to take jump shots, which they struggle with. And the Kings hold the Lakers to just 10 points in the second quarter. That's massive. 10 points in the paint in the second quarter is phenomenal for the Sacramento Kings. That is an adjustment. I've told you about, like, if you have a checklist of ways the Sacramento Kings team has improved, or checkpoints on the race to the Kings becoming a playoff team, here's another one for you. If you still don't believe, I don't know what you're doing, but if you need more to check off, this is a perfect example. Last season, pretty much last of 16 seasons, the Kings fold this game early second quarter. The Kings are down 14. They can't stop the Lakers. They can't get anything going. They chalk it up to missing their best player, or one of their best players, and they completely just fall apart. That's not what this Sacramento Kings team does. The Kings have shown a consistent ability, regardless of who's playing and who they are playing, to when they fall down by double digits early, they're able to respond and to come back. And it doesn't take 2 or 3 quarters to get back. The Kings can turn it around in half a quarter like they did in that second quarter. But again, it started on the defensive end, and with the rest of the team starting to meet and match the offensive output of De'Aaron Fox. This is a phenomenal team win. A phenomenal team win. De'Aaron's going to get a lot of praise. He absolutely should. I'm not taking anything away from De'Aaron. This was a team victory to the absolute full definition of team victory. And that's why it's my favorite of the season. The resiliency that the Sacramento Kings show in a game where they're without their most important player. Most important and best are different. I think De'Aaron Fox is the best player on this team. They still had their best player, but most important is what Domantas Sabonis is. Not to mention, Domantas Sabonis is coming off of the Western Conference Player of the Week award, where he averaged a triple-double, and the Kings had to make up for that triple-double average. And I'll share with you the list of Kings and what they were able to do in addition to scoring that helped make up for that gap. And it points more to how significant of a team victory this was for the Kings. I'm going to do that here in just a second. This episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by our friends at Rocket Money. And if your New Year's goals are to manage your money better, Rocket Money is perfect for you. This is a tool that I and my family use all the time. I handle finances in my family, which you've seen in the past, like math-wise, I'll screw up basic scores for an NBA game or basic stats for an NBA game by doing basic addition in my head. So me handling the finances can sometimes be pretty concerning for my wife and my family. Rocket Money makes it so much easier for me because not only do they do some of that hard math for me, they show me clearly where my money is going. Like, it doesn't just show like the paychecks that I get and all the those common like account balances and things like that. Rocket Money will show me, hey, you spent this much money on groceries this week. You spent this much money at Starbucks. It breaks everything down for you to show you where your money is going and where it is coming in. It'll also give you budget and spending reports for every single week. I just get notifications, texts, or emails saying, hey, you spent this much money this week, which is this percentage less than the week before. It also helps you set up budgeting plans. And here's the best thing. Rocket Money will help you manage your subscriptions. This sounds like a simple tool, but it is essential in 2023 because there's so many subscriptions out there. The subscription-based models are made to be hard to cancel, so you might have some subscriptions right now that you have either completely forgotten about or you just live with because you've tried to cancel it in the past and you just have to go through too many hoops. It's too much of a hassle, and it's only $5.99 a month or whatever, so it's not that big of a deal. Well, Rocket Money can help cancel those subscriptions for you. It'll show you your list of subscriptions so you know everything that you are subscribed to, and if there's something that you don't want, you just click on it and say, cancel my subscription, and Rocket Money's concierge will handle that for you. Stop throwing your money away. Cancel unwanted subscriptions right now and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/lockedonnba. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedonnba. 18.5 points, 14.3 rebounds, and 10.3 assists. That is what Domantas Sabonis averaged last week for the Sacramento Kings, leading the Kings to a 4-0 week. That is why Domantas Sabonis was named the Western Conference Player of the Week. Well, I could have done what most people would do and take his averages for this season and say, okay, this is what the Sacramento Kings have to replace. But I think it was more significant and more important to take those Western Conference Player of the Week numbers, the way that he has been playing, that has been leading to all these victories and all this success recently, and focus on that. How were the Sacramento Kings going to, as a team, replace what Sabonis has done in all three categories? Well, I wouldn't say De'Aaron's 31 points completely replaced what Sabonis does, but maybe De'Aaron's 31 with Harrison's 20 and Kevin Huerter's 18 and Richaun Holmes' 16, that made up for that. But offensively, scoring-wise, like, that was the least of my concerns when it comes to making up for Sabonis. We know this team can score. This team has plenty of scores on it. What about assists? Well, Kevin Huerter stepped up in a big way. In addition to his 18 points, he had 8 assists for the Sacramento Kings tonight. De'Aaron Fox, in addition to his 31 points, he had 6 assists tonight for the Sacramento Kings. A combined 14 assists from your starting backcourt. That is huge for the Kings. Doesn't completely make up for the 10 assists a game that Domantas Sabonis is providing, but you tack those in with, I think, Harrison Barnes finished with like 3 or something like that. You had a couple players off the bench with 2 or 3 assists. Like, you combine all that together, the ball movement is still there. You make up for the facilitating that Domantas Sabonis usually provides and has provided over the last week. But the big one was rebounding. Where was the rebounding going to come from for the Sacramento Kings with how good Domantas Sabonis is on the glass? Well, we already talked about the game that Richaun Holmes had. Let's go over it again. Richaun provides 11 rebounds in addition to his 16 points in 31 minutes as a starter. Hasn't started all season long, comes in, and not only scores in the way that we know he can, he crashes the glass. 11 rebounds is not as much as the totals that we've seen Domantas Sabonis put up, but it's still a double-double. It's significant. But boy, do I got to give some love to my rookie. Keegan Murray only had 10 points tonight. We know he's capable of better than that. Offensively, not his best night. But it's not scoring that the Sacramento Kings needed from Keegan Murray. It's rebounding. And in addition to his 10 points, Keegan Murray finished with a double-double, tacking on 10 rebounds. That is monumental for Sacramento to get 10 rebounds out of Keegan Murray. That is showing me that the rookie not only is capable of taking the note, taking on the challenge from his head coach and Mike Brown that he issued very publicly in a press conference after a Kings loss, or was it the win over the Orlando Magic? I can't remember. After a game at home in front of all the media, I was in the room, Mike Brown steps up to the podium, and one of the first things he says is, I need rebounding from Keegan Murray. It was after a game where Keegan had 0 rebounds. From that point, he's had at least 3, a couple games with 5, I think a game with 6, and now he provides the Sacramento Kings with 10 rebounds in the game that Domantas Sabonis is out. So not only can Keegan listen to and take those notes publicly from his head coach, he can recognize the significance of rebounding in a game where Domantas Sabonis is missing and go out there and actually do it. Like, we all recognize the Kings needed to crash the glass more, and I guarantee you he had multiple assistant coaches in his ear saying, attack the rim, attack the glass, get us some rebounds. He provides that, including an offensive rebound and a putback dunk that was just wonderful to see, because another challenge to Keegan Murray this season has been attacking the rim more aggressively, going up with more strength, trying to dunk the ball every single time. He did that tonight. But how Keegan Murray crashed the glass is far more significant and impressive to me than anything he could have done shooting the basketball wise tonight, outside of dropping like 40 or 50 points. Those 10 rebounds are just as valuable as 30 points from Keegan Murray tonight. Just as valuable. He was huge and stepped up in a major way. He wasn't alone too. Harrison Barnes, who's also not necessarily known for filling up the stat sheet outside of his shooting, he continues to shoot really well. Sharpshooter Harrison Barnes has been excellent. He also had one of the biggest moments of the game after LeBron James, with just over a minute remaining, was fouled, converted the and one, and tied the game. Harrison Barnes comes back the other end of the floor, dribbles into a double team, splits the defenders, and finishes with the layup at the rim, is also fouled. He converts the three-point play. The Black Falcon has been excellent for the Sacramento Kings offensively over the last handful of games. In addition to that, he provided 6 rebounds for the Kings tonight. 6 rebounds to go along with his 20 points. That is huge. Now let me talk about the Kings bench a little bit, because I think the Kings bench is going to take the majority of the negativity from this game. They were outplayed significantly by the Lakers bench. The Lakers bench outscored the Kings bench 59-21. Of course, Russell Westbrook comes off the bench for the Lakers, but regardless, we expect better from the Kings bench. We expect better from Malik Monk. He really struggled in this game. But I do want to focus on what the bench did right, because when it mattered, they had big moments. Davion Mitchell didn't have the most impressive stat line tonight, had some crucial defensive moments, including a big block of a three-point shot in the fourth quarter. When Davion Mitchell needed to clamp down defensively, like we know he's capable of doing every single night, he continues to provide it. And then there's Chimezie Metu and Trey Lyles. I thought both of them offensively and defensively had some big moments. Trey Lyles finished with 10 points. Chimezie Metu finished with 6 points. Both of those guys came in and did what they needed to do. They provided energy. Trey Lyles was excellent on both ends of the floor, but particularly on offense in that third quarter when the Kings weren't relying as heavily on De'Aaron Fox. He deserves a ton of credit for that. Trey Lyles has been playing excellent over the last couple of weeks for the Sacramento Kings too, and when he's playing like that, the Kings are a very difficult team to beat, even if the bench as a whole is struggling the way it was. This episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Coming into tonight's game, the Sacramento Kings were slight underdogs. I think they were -3.5 to around -4 against the Lakers. Then once the news came out that Domantas Sabonis was out with illness, that dropped down to about -6.5. Well, if you took that line for the Kings, you made some money. And whether it's betting on just Kings games, betting on NBA games, betting on the NFL playoffs and the Super Bowl upcoming, future bets, side bets, prop bets, taking the over on the Kings win total, which I told you should have done at the beginning of this season when that line first came out. Even betting on esports or combat sports like boxing, MMA. If you're a golf guy, you can even bet on golf. They have it all for you on BetOnline. And if you love sports podcasts, like I know you do because you listen to the Locked On Kings podcast, you can even find those at BetOnline as well. They're the fastest and easiest way to get all of your betting information. You can head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Y'all, the Sacramento Kings are the 3rd seed in the Western Conference. When is the last time that we have been able to say that, except out the season 1-0, and we're tied with 4 or 5 or 6 other teams in the West at the top. Now, this is legitimate. The Sacramento Kings are the 3rd seed in the West. And like I said at the beginning of the show, I don't care if that isn't going to stick. I don't care. The Kings have earned the recognition that comes with working their way to the 3rd spot. You open the Western Conference standings right now, you see SAC and that Kings logo in the 3rd place. Recognize that the Kings are there because they're on another win streak, a 5-game win streak currently. They're 7 games over 500, and they're doing it as a team. They're doing it without excuses. They didn't roll over and use Domantas Sabonis being out on the road against LeBron James and the Lakers as an excuse. They fell down big from behind and battled back without Domantas Sabonis. They don't care what everybody else is saying about them negatively, because when they step onto the floor, they are one of the toughest teams to beat on a nightly basis. Now, the 2 teams ahead of them, the Memphis Grizzlies, who I think have won like 11 straight or something like that, and the Denver Nuggets, the Kings have beaten both of those teams at least once. I know that doesn't matter too much. I don't think they're catching those 2, right? Those are the top 2 teams in the West. They're on a tier of their own. But the Sacramento Kings absolutely are in the conversation and in the race and in the battle for 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, that cluster of teams that they find themselves in. And newsflash, that's where they're going to stay. I told you once before, and I'll say it again. Do not let the Sacramento Kings actually be this good. Because if you thought Kings fans had a lot of bottled up energy and frustration and were just waiting for the opportunity to be able to talk some smack a little bit and walk around with some swagger, I guarantee you, Kings fans rolling into work tomorrow, whether they work with a Lakers fan or whether they work with a bunch of people who know nothing about basketball, they're going to be walking in with a little swagger in their step because 3rd seed in the Western freaking Conference. And ooh, does that feel so good to say. Hopefully that feels just as good for you to talk about or just to listen to as a Sacramento Kings fan. This win fired me up so much tonight, man. My favorite win of the season. Maybe it will be topped and I'll get an even more favorite win down the line. Hell, how about a playoff win? I'll take a playoff win to replace this game as my favorite win of the season, or maybe the win that secures a playoff spot for the Sacramento Kings. Maybe that will replace it. But for right now, on the journey to get to this point, or get to that point, this game tonight is a shining example of the work that this team has put in and how good this team can be, even if they've only been together for a handful of months, y'all. This team has not been together as long as the Pelicans that they're now ahead of, as long as the Clippers that they're ahead of, as long as the Phoenix Suns that they're ahead of. Now you could say, man, the Kings are outperforming, or you could tell it like it is, which is this is a really good basketball team that will continue to get better and has opportunity to continue to get better. Why? Because this offense is the best in the NBA and is sustainable, and the defense really can only improve. That excites me. That fires me up. I'm very excited to see where the Kings go from here. And they got 2 tough matchups at home now. They return to the Golden One Center Friday, a battle against the Oklahoma City Thunder, which are a better team than their record indicates. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's a great player. Dort is a great player. I like that team a lot. And then the very next night, you got the Philadelphia 76ers, one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. So maybe this win streak comes to an end, or maybe the Kings just continue rolling and get 2 wins on their home floor to continue the punch. The easiest chunk of their schedule is now over. It's in the past. But the good news is, even if I called last homestand a failed homestand, and I own those words, and if you want to laugh at me now and say, Matt, you're an idiot, because from that point, the Kings have won 5 straight. If you want to say that, you know what? I'm happy to be wrong. I'm thrilled to be wrong, or I'm thrilled to look like an idiot and look like a pessimistic dork a week ago with where the Sacramento Kings are standing right now. I don't care. Put the dunce cap on me. As long as I'm a dunce covering a team that is 3rd in the Western freaking Conference, I do not care. I'm having fun. I hope you are having fun too. And if you're going to the Golden One Center for either of those games, I would love to see you. So please let me know if you are going. I also want to hear from you. How you feeling tonight? I know you're feeling good because it's a Lakers win regardless of the context, but with the context of tonight's game, with the Kings being a 3rd seed, with the Kings beating the Lakers in LA without Domantas Sabonis, how are you feeling? Get loose in the comments. Tweet me at MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. Email me mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Talk to me, man. Now I got to go wipe this sweat off my forehead. I got to go change and get ready to do a TV hit on ABC 10. I'm going to be talking more about this game on ABC 10. It's already going to be too late for you to see that, but just know I'm taking this energy, I'm taking this Kings excitement to the airwaves, to television, where it truly belongs. And Kings fans, if you're not paying attention to, or rather Sacramentans, if you're not paying attention to what the Kings are doing, I'm going to make sure you're paying at least a little bit of attention. But for you loyal Locked On Kings listeners who are always paying attention, even when this team was one of the worst in the league, even when this team was going through the hell they put us through last season, you deserve this. You deserve this. Always remember that. And I'm so happy to be able to provide this fun, winning content for you. Until next time, my name is Matt George. You have been listening to Locked On Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.